Hi there, welcome to QA Box Let's Test, and this video we are going to learn how to perform drag and drop operations in Cypress. Now browser has this draggable support for some default elements, and let us see those. So essentially there are three type of elements like text, so you can drag them. Then you have this link, you can again drag this as well, and then you also have images. Alright, so you can drag these type of elements, but what about the others? Now the first thing that we have to do is to make any other element draggable. So you could see I can't drag this sign in button at this moment, but I can add an attribute which will make it draggable. So let's add that attribute, and that is draggable equal to true. Right, let us hit enter, and now if I start dragging this, right, I can drag it on this screen. Okay, but when I drop this, nothing is happening. All right, now the thing is, if you want to perform certain action when you start the drag and drop process, you have to write that inside the event listeners. All right, so now what are events? So anytime you interact with the elements, you're performing some kind of events. So basically this drag and drop could be done by three different ways. Number one, by using the native HTML drag and drop API, and in that you have all the different events. For each of these events, as you could see on event handlers, so these would be the event handlers. What do you want to do when the drag ends? Okay, what do you want to do when the drag start? What do you want to do when you drop the particular thing, the target object? So these are the different events that I have implemented for this particular case and this one. So in here I could drag this image, as you could see, right? So drag start and end are related to the element which you are dragging. Rest all the other events like drag enter, drag move, drag leave, and drop, they are associated with the target element. So I can drop it in here, and now you see the image is being moved from this box to this box. Okay, so this example is built using the HTML native drag and drop APIs. Now I have also made this sortable list using again the drag and drop APIs, and in here I've added some kind of transition. You could see that the boxes are floating around the screen. Okay, the other type is by using the mouse events. Now you can, let's say for this circle, I'm pressing my mouse down, right? Then I start dragging it, or I'll say the mouse is moving. So the next event is mouse move, and I'm dropping that. Okay, so let me show you the code for this. So you could see we have the mouse down, mouse up, in mouse move. Okay, so first the mouse down is being triggered, then we move to the target element, and at the end we release that. Okay, so that is called as mouse up. Now these days we also have the touch computers, right? So we have uh, touch start, touch move, and touch end for those computers. So these are the events that are being fired when you touch your screen. You press an element and start dragging, and that eventually drop it to the droppable zone. So these events are being fired. All right, so first thing first, how to do that, since there is no direct command available in Cypress to do that. So there is a plugin, and for that, what you have to do, go to the plugin section, search for Cypress drag and drop. This is the GitHub page for that, and copy this command. All right, open your terminal and run this command. I'm absolutely fine. I'm this time saving that as a dev dependency. Reason being because this plugin doesn't work in all the cases, and therefore I've got like 6 different cases in which I'm going to show you, how to then work with these kind of events. So you have to manually trigger these events. By manually, of course, I mean that programmatically you have to use the trigger method in Cypress. But let's first install this plugin in here. So install that. The next thing that you have to do is in your package.json, check that this thing is being added because you have saved that as a dev dependency. Fine. The other thing that you have to do is you have to import this. All right, and all this information is available on that GitHub page. All right, so we are good here. Okay, so now I've already created the test cases in the interest of time, but I'm going to explain quite a lot in this video, so stay tuned. So the first one is, of course, the website that I've created, and now with the help of that plugin, what do you have now? So you have this cy.get. Okay, so in here you are going to provide the source element which you want to start dragging, and then you have got now access to this drag command after that plugin that you have added as a dependency in your project. So now you have access to this drag command, and inside that you have to provide in the selector for the target element. All right. So I'm not now focusing on the selectors because I've already explained that quite a lot in the previous videos. So we are now going to concentrate on drag and drop only. All right, and hence all the code is already in here. But let's see that. And I'm also going to explain these two functions. But let's start with writing the code first. All right. So I'm visiting the page. All right, this page, and this is the thing. So I'm going to change this to only, and let us run this. Okay. All right, so in this particular case, at least, this plugin has worked. Now let's understand what are the different events that are being fired, right? So the image was in here, all right? So first, the drag was started on that image. Let us also see the HTML for that. Okay, so we are in here, right? So drag, start, and end will be performed on this particular element. All right, it's very important because at times what happens is we apply a lot of styling when we start the drag and drop process. Let me show you that. So I come in here, and so if you see, if I start dragging the process, now the background of the div is gray and also the border are being dashed. Now if I move in here, right, so now this image has left the initial div in which it was there earlier, and it is entering in here. So now we have entered into, the moment we enter into this, right, it has taken some time. As you could see, it has taken some time. So we are already into it, but the event is not yet triggered. Right now that event is being triggered, and you see now the border is dashed and the background is gray. Now we are over. Okay, now we are over this element. That's another event that is being fired. And when I drop this, it is going to be the drop event, and there is one more event that is being fired when you drop that, and that basically has made it empty. So that is the drag end. All right, so drag start and drag end are performed on this particular element. All right, the other four events, sorry, are being performed on whichever element we are moving to. Okay, all right, so let's move on to our test case. So it has worked in this particular case. So I'm going to set it to skip again, and I'm going to use a similar website which has implemented this drag and drop using the HTML native APIs for drag and drop. All right, so now let us run this test case, and we are making use of the method offered to us by that plugin. All right, let me run this and see whether it works this time as well or not. It is not going to work. And all right, so you could see, all right, so you see that element is being dropped in here, but it is still showing in here. Okay, let us do that manually to understand this better. So I'm going to copy this and open that in the tab in here. This is the page, and now if I drag this, all right, I have to drop it in here. The element is disappeared from here as well. All right, as you could see, right, it's being dropped in here. All right, now you see that element in here, but when I used the plugin, let us see what the behavior is. The element is dropped, but it is also showing in here. All right, so the events are not being fired properly. Okay, so now how am I going to fix that? So let us see that. I'm going to make use of the trigger method in Cypress. So trigger method basically triggers an event on a DOM element, and we can pass in the event name, position, and options. So that is the reason why I wanted to cover the events first. Okay, so now let us write our own code to work with this. Okay, so now this is my code. So what I'm doing in here now. So let us comment this section out, and I'm going to also uncomment this data transfer. I'm going to talk about that in a while. So now what are we going to do? So this is the element, right? And we are initiating the start on that. Like I mentioned, drag start, okay, and drag end are called on the draggable object, okay, and drop is called on the target element. So what are we doing in here? So we are just finding the element which we want to drag, and then we are using the trigger method, and the event that we are firing now is drag start. Now what is this drag transfer and why I'm using it in here? So data transfer object basically is used to hold the data that is being dragged during a drag and drop operation. So any element that you are dragging, and this is very important, let us open this as well. So in here we have this data transfer object, all right, and it has got a lot of properties like drop effect. So get the type of drag and drop operation currently selected or sets the operation to a new type, right? Then we also have file because we can also drag and drop the files, okay, and also have the item and also has the type. So array of strings give the format that was set in the drag start event, because at times we want to control what we want to drag, all right, and we also want to check that when we are dropping certain things, right, are the things the valid one or not, okay. So with the help of this data transfer object, we can control that, okay. This is very important. At times you also need to specify more properties on this data transfer object. Currently I'm only creating this data transfer object, and that is it. I'm not specifying any other property. I'm going ahead with the default values, okay. But in some cases you also have to add in those values by yourself to make your events fired successfully and to generate the valid result using Cypress, okay. So that is your data transfer object. Now the next thing is, of course, so we have started the drag start, right, and we have to then perform the drop, right? Though I showed you many different events, but the important one for us are drag start, uh, drag move. Also at times you have to provide in, again it comes down to how it is being implemented. So at times you also have to provide in the location of your element where you want to drop, okay, right? So at times we also, when we have to work with this drag over, we have to provide the pixels where you want to move to, okay. So in this particular case we are fine. We are just using drag start, we are using drop, and we are using drag end, and then it's pretty simple. So we just run this code now and let us see if it works or not. So we have fired three events, all right. You can see this one is uh, dropped in here and also removed from here. So what did we do? So we fired three events in this particular sequence: drag start, drop, and drag end, okay. It's pretty simple, right? Now let us now use the same thing in our previous test case, okay. So in here also we are doing pretty much the same, all right. So let me uncomment this and comment this out, okay. So again we are starting the, we are triggering the drag start, all right, then we are triggering the drop, and at the end we are triggering the drag end. It is mandatory to initiate at least these three. In some cases, like I mentioned, you also have to work with the position of the element where you want to drop. So in that case you also have to use drag over. All right, fine. So let us now execute this. All right, so I've commented out the plugin code. Let us run this. Okay, so it requires the data transfer object. So let us uncomment that as well. All right, so our code is working in both the examples. All right, that builds up some kind of confidence that, okay, I mean, this is just 3 lines of code, and it is kind of reliable as well. So yeah, that's fine. Let us now skip this test case and move on to the third one. Okay, so we have that circle example, Okay, now there is an event being fired the moment we drop the smaller circle inside the bigger circle. An alert would be raised which would have this text. So we have already talked about this, so I'm just using this code in here. Now let's first start with the plugin thing. All right, so let us change it to only execute that. It is trying really hard, so you could see it has launched it has triggered quite a few events like pointer down, mouse down, drag start, drag over, but the result is not what we are looking for. And also you might have realized that this time it's a different site. It is not the same that I showed to you in here. The reason is, while working with this example, I figured out that somehow Cypress runner, basically test runner, is not able to render this properly in this particular setting. So HTML, CSS, and all that. So it is not able to render that properly. So, but if I create a separate page like that, right? So all of the elements are missing, then it works in that particular case. As you could see in here, you could see both the circles, but we fail to actually drop the smaller circle inside this bigger circle. All right, so this particular example is making use of mouse events. So now how to do that? So let me first comment this out, and it's kind of not that difficult. So let me just uncomment the code that you have to write. Okay, so what are you going to do? So let's understand this. So this is my circle, right? And my application has used the mouse event to implement drag and drop. So okay, I need to find this circle, but then I also need to find the center of this circle somewhere here, right? And I'm going to now use the mouse down and then start dragging and move my smaller circle to this particular location. Okay, and then I'm going to release my mouse. Okay, something like that. And if you could see now the alert was raised, right? And even that assertion is being executed. All right, so let's now look at the code. So we are first finding the bigger circle. Okay, and then with the help of this then method, I've got access to this jQuery element, right? So with the help of this, I've already covered that. I have converted that into an HTML element, right? And now I can execute my JavaScript code, and this is the very important method, which is get bounding client rect. So basically this is my element. So you can say element dot get bounding client rect. So the element dot get bounding client rect method returns a DOM rect object, which provides information about the size of an element and its position relative to the viewport. Now, what is this DOM rect? A DOM rect basically describes the size and position of a rectangle. So let us also do some reading on that. So this is the MDN page for get bounding client rect. And if you could see, this is your element and this is your viewport. I've already talked about viewports, and I hope that part is clear. Now, this particular point basically, right? So this thing has got access to quite a lot properties. So if you could see, if I just get rid of this left and do the dot, you see, I mean, these are the different properties that are available: bottom, height, left, right, top, width, xy. All right, so now that particular page is explaining us all of that. So this is your y and top. Okay, this is your x and left, right? From this viewport till here, this is your bottom and this is your right. Okay, so now let's see what are we going to do with this information. So now we are going to identify the left, okay, and we are going to identify the width. So basically we are going to identify this, okay, and we are going to identify this particular thing as well. So this is your width, so width of the element, okay, and this is the starting point, right, on the x-axis for this element. So all I'm doing now is I'm finding the center of x and center of y, so that I can drop my smaller circle in the center of the bigger circle. Okay, so it's pretty simple now, simple mathematics. So I've used, for x-axis I've used left and width, and for y-axis I have used top and height. And now this is my x center value and this is my y center value. Why did I use this x2 by 2? So width is like this full one, right? I want the center, which would be then half of this. So this plus half of this would be the center. Okay, and now what you have to do, so now you know the center of this bigger circle div1. Simple. Now as I mentioned, I know because I've coded that this application is firing those mouse events, right? And this application, right, could also handle the touch events. So let me show you. So I've implemented both of these kind of touch start, touch and touch move, and mouse down, mouse up, and mouse move. So both of that would work. But in this particular case, in the test case, I've used only this, right? Not the other one. Okay, so what are we doing now? We are finding the smaller element, and then see, we are firing the mouse down, right? Because all the events are being fired on what? The element that we are dragging, isn't it? So in here, I am pressing my mouse down on this element. I'm moving my mouse on this, all right? All the events are being fired on this smaller circle, and I'm releasing my mouse on this smaller circle only, all right? And therefore, you see, I'm first finding that element, that I'm first pressing the trigger. I'm, press, I'm then I'm then firing the mouse down using trigger. Then I'm firing the mouse move, and in here I am providing the position because, as I mentioned, this trigger method, right? It has got three arguments, right? You can pass in three arguments, and first one is event name, second is position, third is options, right? So this time I want to know the center of the bigger circle, and hence I am passing this client X and client Y values in here. And what are these? What is this client X and client Y now? Okay, let's see that as well. So now this is the thing that we have to now look at. So they are basically three kind of things, right? So you have client X, client Y. Then you have got page X and page Y. Okay, you could see page X and page Y. Then you have got this screen X and screen Y, and you could clearly see that this client X and this page, right? The client and page, they are pretty much the same, right? If we say that the event is being fired at this blue dot, right? So everything is being calculated from here. Okay, so if I say page X and page Y, they're relative to the top left of the fully rendered content area in the browser. This reference point is below the URL bar and back button in the upper left. This point could be anywhere in the browser window and can actually change location if there are embedded scrollable pages embedded within pages and the user moves a scroll bar. Now what about the screen X and screen Y? They are relative to the top left of the physical screen or monitor. This reference point only moves if you increase or decrease the number of monitors or the monitor resolution. Client X and client Y relative to the upper left edge of the content area, the viewport of the browser window. This point does not move even if the user moves a scroll bar from within the browser. Okay, so these are again important things. So now let's come back to the code. So in here, in the mouse move, we have to provide in this client X and client Y. Okay, and now if I run my code, all right, let us see whether we are able to move the smaller circle. Oh yeah, we are able to move. That was really quick, and we also have this assertion being passed. Let us re-execute that. All right, so it works, and it is in the center of the bigger circle. Great. Let me now skip this. And this is a very important concept, right? So you find the using this method, you find the center, but then you also need to understand these properties left, top with the one that I explained. Okay, now what about these things? So now see, what I have done is I have created some functions in here. Okay, because I'll be making use of this again and again, because in most of the cases, I would like to drag my element to the center of the target element, right? Most of the cases, not always. And the cases, in this particular case, let us first see that. Okay, so my application is this. And now we are again going to work on this. So the moment I start dragging it, you see the list is scrolling. And let us see one more thing. So if my cursor is to the first half of the element I'm dragging on, right, it would be positioned before that. But if my element is dragged to the lower half of the element, right, it would be positioned after that. But if it would be exact, so let's see, it is going to be at the top. So let me do it with 4, right, and if I do that, right, it would be positioned before that. So in some cases, like this particular specific case, right, if I use the center position, right, it would always be dropped after that element, all right, on which I'm hovering. I don't want that. So what I want to do is, all right, if you could see in here, so what I've done is, let me now use the same concept, right? Again, the plugin is not going to work in here. Okay, as you could see, center approach won't generate the desired result. So what are we going to do? Pretty simple, right? So we are again starting with the drag start, and we have this drag end. They are always being fired on the element that we want to drag, and drag over and drop are being performed on the target element, all right. And we also have this data transfer object, all right. Now if I run this, and let us see. Okay, so you see now 2 is moved after 4, all right. And this is what I wanted. In here, what I've done is I've dropped that element on div 5, all right, on this, basically on 5, right. And as I explained, if this is completely overlapping, then it would be positioned before that element. This is what I wanted. I wanted to drop this element before 5. Okay, so I have to put it on 5 and drop it, and then you would see it in here. And same thing we have achieved in here. Okay, all right. So now let's understand the function first. What is my function? So again, I have this data transfer object, and in JavaScript you can create function inside function. Pretty simple, straightforward, right? And I may be requiring the pixel information, maybe not. So what I'm passing in here is I'm passing this pixel, right, which will contain the true and false value, right? If the value is true, then we do this, all right, and we are going to pass this object. Okay, we are going to pass these values to this function. Now where are we using this value? We're using this value at the drag over, because we want to drag over the target element. Okay, that's what we want to achieve. So therefore the logic is pretty simple. So we find the target element, and then we do this calculation, and which will give us the client x and client y. All right, pretty simple, right? So this function is ready. If I don't want to work with the pixel, I just pass null in that function and it would work. Okay, so you see the function is present in here as well. Okay, and it works. So let us comment out everything now. So this one and this one as well, I think we are not using only. So let us change this to skip, and let us re-execute our first test case. And this time all we are doing is using this function. All right, in the first case it doesn't matter whether I pass true or false, it works. All right, so let us execute that. Okay, so it is able to move that. All right, great. So let me just comment this out and change it to skip. In the next one, again, what I've done is, because in case of mouse we are again doing the same thing. So you can follow the same thing in here, whether you want the pixel or not. So again, doing the same thing, finding the center, and then it's pretty much the same, the mouse move, because we have to move to that element. So I'm just passing the client x and client y. Right, great. So again, you can in case of mouse move, you can use that function, like in here, like this. So you can just comment out this and execute this function. It's going to do the same. Let us execute that. So I'm going to comment everything out and just simply invoke this function. Let us run that. Okay, also need to change this, and let's see. Okay, so it was pretty quick. Boom, it's working. All right. So let us move on to this one is also done. The Angular. Okay, this one is interesting. And it comes down to how Angular basically is handling these events internally. All right. So in here, you could see we are performing the mouse move, mouse down, all right, and mouse up, but neither the plugin nor the code that we have written is going to work, and this is solely with Angular. Let us see this application first. Okay, so this is my application, right? And you can drag the element over here. Let me click on any of the element. I'd like to show you something first before we move on to that. So this is making use of this CDX drag. So let us open that somewhere. Okay, so let me say CDX drag and drop. And you could say this is material.angular.io. This is the Angular application, or the you can build the UI using this library in Angular. Okay, and in here you see the same example. The example is it here. Now, as I mentioned, neither my code nor the plugin would work. So then, how are we going to work on that, right? So let us run with the plugin first. Let us run that. Okay, it is starting. To click on this one, this project, I've already written the code. Okay, so as you could see, this guy has fired in a lot of events, but it didn't work out, right? So then, what is the solution for this? All right. Now let me comment this out and show you the code you have to use with Angular. Okay, so we have to find the element which we have to start dragging. As you could see, draggable. Then we've extracted this element into the HTML element. Same way, where do you want to drop? We've extracted that element as well. Okay, and now we know the droppable element. We can, with the help of this get bounding client, find the different coordinates. Now you see what do we have to do in here. Okay, so we have to fire this. In fact, it starts with you have to dispatch event. Okay, it's not going to work with that trigger thing. So you have to basically dispatch the events. Now dispatch event dispatches an event at the specified event target synchronously, invoking the affected event listeners in the appropriate order. Right? That's why I said it is specific to Angular, and hence we have to go for dispatch event. Okay, now inside that we are creating in this new mouse event. So this mouse event interface represents events that occur due to user interacting with a pointing device such as mouse. The common events using this interface include click, double click, mouse up, mouse down, mouse move. Okay, so we have to make use of this approach, and this is the exact way you have to use that. So you have to dispatch the mouse move event first on the draggable element. So you have to set it to mouse moving state first, and then you have to fire in the mouse down. Okay, then you again have to fire in the mouse move, and now you have to shift it slightly. So you could see that client X and client Y, you set in some value in here, and then at the end you are going to perform this mouse move again. So you see, first we are doing the mouse move, and then we are doing the mouse down. Then again it's mouse move, but relative to the draggable object location. But next you also have to perform one more mouse move, and this time it has to match to the values of you see this droppable, right? So this coordinate uh, constant is being created using this droppable, right? So now you are saying that okay, find the x of that droppable element, add 10 to that, and then it is going to work on it, and at the end you have to dispatch the mouse up. So instead of just doing the mouse down, mouse move, and mouse up, this is the order that you have to follow in case of Angular. Okay, and then it's pretty simple, straightforward. So let me run this solution now. I hope it would work. Previously it worked. Okay, so get to work is moved in here. All right. Again, pretty specific to Angular. So all the code is already there on the GitHub. You can make use of it. And I basically read this from this particular Stack Overflow page. It's great. So next is my jQuery thing. Okay. Now again, the drag and drop is not going to work. The function from the plugin is not going to work. Let me show you. All right, so nothing has happened. All right, now how to fix that? Now, in case of jQuery, what we have to do is we have found the target element first, of course, and we have identified the center of x and y for that element. Then we have started with this source element, and again we have identified the center of it. Okay, and then see what are we doing. So we are now starting with the drag element. We have first performed the mouse down. Okay, and in here it is mandatory for us to pass this which information, which equal to 1 basically means which key on the mouse you have pressed. So is it left or right? So one signifier is that you have pressed the left. Right now, then it is mandatory to pass in page X. See, the difference is in case of in other cases basically we have worked with client X and client Y. In case of jQuery, you have to work with page X and page Y. I already explained client X and page X. Right? Pretty much the same, but the way it is implemented in jQuery is that it is not going to work with client X. It is going to work with page X. So when you are doing the mouse down, you have to provide in the information of so where you are pressing the mouse. So you also have to provide those coordinates, right? Therefore you have so page X, and then you have to pass in the source X information, center of so we are pressing the center of it. So therefore we are providing that page X and page Y. Now where do you want to move to? So we want to move to the center of the target element, right? So therefore we are providing the page X and page Y in here, and then we are performing this. Now if I run this, and also there is an event that would fire, and it would have the text I am dropped. So let me run this, see if it works. All right, so it has worked. Now the thing is, there is no one way in which you can say, okay, hey, this is going to work across all these different implementation. So basically you have to look at the way the particular drag and drop you want to test is implemented. The way you can approach is, so basically within the so let me open this. Okay, so do we have this selenium thing in here? Yeah, in here. All right, so what you have to do is you have to open the developers toolbar. You have to go to sources. Okay, and you have to go to JavaScript. Okay, and in here I guess this is a drop and drop demo. Okay, so this is the file that we have to look at, and in here you would find all the different events that are being fired. So you see they have added that listener dragon. So basically the way you can approach is within the sources panel of the dev tool you set some event listener breakpoints for drag and drop. Okay, and then use the drag and drop normally in your app by dragging the things around. Then you can see exactly what these events look like and the data that they use in your application. Okay, and for practice, if you want to use this, okay, again go to the GitHub page. I'll drop the link of this in the description of this video. Go and download this page and practice. This requires practice. Okay, so thank you so much. I hope you like that.